So welcome to the Behind the Bar podcast. I'm Taya, your workforce host, and today I'm joined by Alex. If you could just give a little introduction.
Hello, my name's Alex. I work at Brewhouse Kitchen, have done for the last few years, and won the Apprentice of the Year front of house and management with the BII a couple of months ago, so it's a privilege to be here.
Thank you. And if you could just describe how you got into the hospitality industry and how you started working in a pub.
Yeah, I think like many people, it's a bit of an accident. I kind of fell into hospitality after originally trying to join the Royal Air Force, and for one reason or another that ended up not happening. So I went into hospitality just as a bar job really, and then enjoyed it and stayed. And then over the years, the last 5 or so years, I've just ended up developing inside hospitality and becoming a manager. So it's really just, again, it wasn't planned. It was just something that's kind of happened, but I enjoy it and I'm not planning on leaving anytime soon. So something must be going right, I guess.
Yeah.
But so that's why I'm here anyway.
The Royal Air Force, that's a very different
it's
industry than the pub.
It's not, as I said, like, hospitality was never necessarily the plan.
Yeah.
And I definitely think it was, not something I fell into, but it was just something that was available at the time.
Yeah.
As I think it is for many people, it's that stopgap, or you're not deciding if you want to go to uni or whatever it might be. And so a lot of people do it. And I think for me, it was just finding a bar job or just a job really, just to keep myself going while I'm not long out of college and things like that. Just stayed. So very different. As I said, it wasn't really the plan. I never really wanted to go into the trade, but here we are, I guess. And I think so far, no regrets either. So.
What was the thing that clicked for you then, that you were like, you know what, actually I do like being in the hospitality industry. I think I'm going to stay here.
Yeah, and I actually think I could almost point it down to a person. And I think when I was at Brewhouse in Horsham, which was the first site I was in, my area manager, Jono, I met him at the BII again. It was great to see him actually. But Jono, he was my regional manager, and he suggested management path and apprenticeships and ways to go from here. And originally, I kind of dismissed it a little bit. It wasn't necessarily the route I was going for, and I was still trying to find my feet and work out where I was going. And he suggested a few ideas, which I kind of took on board and didn't really think about at the time, but I got on with him really well. And after discussing it a little bit further, we decided to kind of make that move. So he kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily inspired, but he definitely pointed me in the right direction to find that inspiration as to where to go from there. So I think kind of the management and the body at Brewhouse Kitchen is really what made me want to stay there. And I think now Lee, who's my current regional manager, he who kind of took over from him, continued that as I went on to my second and third site. So I'm now in Southsea as a deputy manager. So it's just great to have that development and those people behind you, and of course all the GMs I've had along the way as well. But when it really clicked in hospitality, I guess it was just when I saw the opportunities that I had. Because originally you're there, you're pulling pints behind a bar, you're not really thinking about your career too much in down that route anyway. And somebody says, well, here's your options, and you go, well, actually, I didn't realise that. And I think that's kind of what made it click for me anyway.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I'm still here.
Do you think it's also, I think the difference with being in hospitality and probably your regular career as an office or something admin related is more the people in hospitality? Yeah,
they make a huge part of it. And I think sometimes I don't get me wrong, sometimes you've had a really busy week, you think, I'd love an office job, but you don't really believe that. And I think knowing that you can, it is the people that make it. You're seeing people all the time. I feel like where I've moved into Portsmouth 2-3 years ago, you feel like you're a part of a community in Southsea, which like the area where I currently work, and you get to know, it's like anywhere, you get to know regulars and you get to know the team, but it's just very people heavy, which I think in an office or a more conventional job, you might not necessarily get so much. And I think to have that ability or that opportunity is brilliant really. And I wouldn't change it for anything.
So you said that you started in Horsham and now you're in Portsmouth. Was that a move with Brewhouse? Did they support you with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in hospitality, I've actually never left Brewhouse. Brewhouse has been the only company I've worked for. I started in Horsham as front of house, and then, as I said, Jono kind of pointed me in some managerial directions, and eventually I became a supervisor and moved on to Worthing, which was my second site. It was it was a relatively new site. It's a hotel as well, so it's the first one in the chain. So it was a bit of a challenge, a bit of a change anyway. But obviously I didn't really know what to think, so you take the opportunity. So I moved to Worthing. I did that for, I think it was about half a year, maybe a bit more, and then I saw an opportunity come up in Southsea, and I just wanted to take it. And I think Portsmouth for me at the time was somewhere I think I'd rather be.
Yeah.
So I took the transfer. So moved to Southsea, and never looked back since. But obviously still got great relationships with people from the other two sites. And the lovely thing about Brewhouse is that it's a big company to an extent, but so you don't know everybody.
Yeah.
But it's still small enough that you pretty much know everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a good balance. So you still keep in touch, and everyone's there to support you. So really, really great company to work for.
So the one in Worthing, you said is like pub and hotel.
Yeah.
Does that run differently then?
Not massively. Like the general operations is the same.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, menus are very similar, and the only thing is you might have obviously you have guests during the night, so there's a few differences in terms of service. So whether you maybe open a bit late, or you've got some function rooms or whatever, you might have some more events in those sort of places.
Yeah.
Hotels tend to have for the cater for those events, but I think but generally operations are quite similar. It's just understanding that. I guess the hotel side of the business, and all that, looking after rooms and room cleaning and all that. It's just obviously an extra layer onto the usual pub. I know some brewhouses have had Airbnbs as well, so it's not entirely new to the company. But in terms of an actual hotel, it was the first. And whilst I wasn't there necessarily, I helped open it when I was front of house, but I didn't actually transfer there as a manager till I'd say probably about 9 months to a year after it opened. But to go in and kind of just take the opportunity to do something new was great. And then obviously moving to Southsea, which is kind of back to what I knew. It's not a hotel, it's more pub based.
Yeah.
But with Southsea, it's not so much events and catering to large groups and functions. It's much more where we are on a common, and we get quite a lot of trades, particularly in the summer anyway. So it's great just to have that more summer sort of, not to say it's seasonal, but obviously you certainly do get an increase in trade in the summer. But I think it's just a bit more of that traditional pub trade, I think, which is really great.
See, that's interesting because I used to work at a hotel before I started here. Well, before I started at BII, and I was a receptionist. So I was kind of talking with the pub that was in our venue. But whenever I look at your local pub, I feel like the dynamic is different from a hotel pub. What I'm trying to say is that pub hospitality and hotel hospitality are kind of different in a way of like the people that you're seeing come through the door are different. Yeah,
for sure. Absolutely.
Do you find that you prefer your locals, your just regular pub venue, or do you like all pubs?
I think I've become more comfortable with like the pub trade over hotels, but then again, the argument for that is I spend a lot more time in pubs than I have the hotel. It's nice in a way that you have your pub, and when you close, it gives you that time to reset a little bit. You've got no guests in, you're able to get the team where you need them to be, or get everything in order really. With a hotel, you still have that ability, and you're going to have quiet times where you're not going to have anyone in, or in terms of it'll be middle of the night or whatever. But I think when you've obviously got a hotel, there's always at least someone about.
You're always on.
Not to say, I'll enjoy being able to switch off and not look after anybody, but it's just certainly more. I think with a pub, you have more options and you can be a bit more diverse. I think, and it's not necessarily the guests. And you get different guests, hotel guests. A lot of them will come and you never see them again. Well, in pub you might get that repeat trade, but then again you do get regular hotel guests, corporates and people in for business, and you see them every couple of weeks or months or whatever. So it is a different style. But I think with the Brewhouse, because it's obviously we have quite a lot going on. We've got the brewery, so we brew our own beer on site, and then obviously the bar restaurant areas. The hotels, I'm not going to say it's like a secondary thing, because it's absolutely not, but it's it's just an additional layer. I wouldn't say service is any different. You don't treat anything particularly different. It's still the same menu, still the same opening times, really. It just means you might have rooms to look after and a few extra responsibilities. But I think generally speaking, I'd say I prefer the pub trade over the hotel trade. But in terms of Worthing, I know this is site specific. I think it just runs great as both really. So I think it's very specific to the pub, but where we are in Southsea, I do really enjoy it there. So potentially be moving on at some point onto another, maybe if a GM role comes up or whatever. But we'll cross that bridge when it does. But for the time being, I'm very much happy where I am, and great to have Matt, who's my boss, who's been a massive support in the last 3 years, and the team around us have been great. So at the minute I've got no need to rush anywhere else. So
that's great. So when we say front of house, what does that mean exactly? Like if you're just starting, this is your first job in a pub, what does front of house entail?
Sure. So front of house is everything customer facing, really. So whether you're working behind a bar, serving tables, cleaning the pub, cleaning the cellar, it's not just because you're front of house doesn't mean you don't get your hands dirty sometimes. Sometimes it might mean you help out in the kitchen, whether that just be doing some washing up or helping prep food or whatever. We try to not necessarily make sure all of our staff are cross-trained, but make sure where possible we can support all departments. But yeah, front of house is just anything customer related, really. And I think it's quite a common place for people to go. But to actually be good at front of house, I actually think takes a bit of time. And I think it wasn't until I became a manager I actually realised front of house actually because I thought, after a couple of years I was quite good at what I do. And then you realise actually when you go up maybe a level and look back on yourself and reflect really, you go, actually, no, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And you look at some of the staff you have now and go, actually, they're probably better than what I was. But it's a good opportunity just to look back and see where you've come from in many respects. But I think, front of house is, I recommend it for anybody. And, people talk about conscription. I think doing a year in hospitality, I think would make the world a slightly better place. But I think just understanding how to talk to the public and how to interact with other people, I think it's fantastic. So I think it'll be definitely, I recommend it for anybody, whether it's like whether you're just in college for a part-time job or you just don't know where to go yet. I mean, the stigma of hospitality being this stepping stone, I think it's a bit outdated now. Yeah, definitely a great opportunity.
What was one of the things that you look back and you realise, oh, I didn't do that so well?
I think service. I think there's just times where when you and I suppose you've got a different mindset on, but when you're you're 18, 19 years old and you're about to close the pub and then a group of 20 walk in, you're like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. But as a manager, you're like, right, take the opportunity. There's money there and you need to take it, especially in this day and age. But I think, and when you're just in one of those mindsets of, not saying you give bad service, but it's just those, you think of the enthusiasm or maybe the team I have now and go, well, actually, you know what? They seem happy and they're energized, or whether they're just putting it on because I'm there, I don't know. but they do a good job either way. But yeah, it's just a great opportunity. I think I keep saying nothing, but I think it just really is. I think it's a fantastic choice, route for people to go down. And I think everyone looks back and goes, well, that could have been better. But as you progress, then it's time to make sure you make those changes for the next generation, I suppose, next group of people.
So you keep mentioning the ladder that you didn't know about the opportunities. What route are you going down, or what route have you now become aware of?
Yeah, so obviously I'm doing my apprenticeship at the moment. So I'm coming to the end of it in the next few months, I believe. And I think that's an operations manager apprenticeship. Obviously I'm deputy manager at the moment, so I've got a little bit of way to go before I'm a regional manager. But the next step would be to become a general manager, to have my own site. At the moment, obviously we don't know exactly when that'll be, but I know that those discussions I've had with some people in the company about potential timelines and, plans for the future. But that route wasn't really something I knew about until a few years ago. And then to be kind of not shortlisted, but to go, you know what, you have what it takes potentially to do this. And then kind of, have that time to reflect and go, yeah, I'm ready to go from here, I think was just something that maybe it's something I should have noticed, but until somebody goes, I believe you could do this, you don't really go, oh yeah, this is where I want to be. And will I want to be a GM forever? I don't know. Will I want to stay in the industry forever? Truthfully, I have no idea. But for the time being, this is what's been offered to me, and I think is a route that you'd be silly to turn down. So if somebody has that, or the company has that faith in you to do it, then absolutely, make the most of it. So yeah, that route was kind of shown, and yeah, at the moment it's just working towards it. So eventually, maybe have a place on my own. But yeah, as I said, we'll cross that bridge whenever it gets offered or whenever a job becomes available.
So you went from regular team member, and then you did...
Became a supervisor.
Then you did a supervisor.
Yeah, and then when I became a supervisor, I did a level 3 supervisor apprenticeship with HIT training. So I did that for about a year, and that was actually quite an eye opener, because I found it more useful, not necessarily about implementing what I learned, but just kind of learning the theories behind management and leadership. And I think I've forgotten the author now, I believe it's Thomas Erickson, but the Surrounded by Idiots, the book that he made, and kind of just understanding and reading that and going how people learn differently or think differently. And I don't think I was necessarily the best at implementing what I learned from my apprenticeship in what I was doing at that time, but kind of just understanding that just because I think something is this, someone else doesn't necessarily think the same way. So yeah, I became a supervisor while doing that course. When I finished the course, I was promoted to an assistant manager in Worthing at the time. And then, not too long, I think I had about a 6-month break, and then I started my operations manager, which is the level 5 apprenticeship with HIT training as well. So I've been doing that for the last, I believe, 18 months or so. So I'm coming towards the end of it now, and hopefully, if the job's available and the routes are there, I'll complete this, and it might allow me to move on to that next stage. But yeah, no, as I said, I think apprenticeships are great, so definitely make the most of them while I can.
I'm not super familiar with how apprenticeships work.
Okay.
Does it work that you are in a classroom for a few days and then you're in the pub for the majority of the time? Because I know they're different depending on the industry.
I mean, I can't speak for every course or every industry, but for hospitality and with what I've experienced with HIT training at least is it's not classroom based, so you don't really do anything in person per se. Depending on the level that you do, like my level 3, I had like an observation and there's a little bit, so you might do things in person. But again, it just depends on the course. But where my level 5 is quite often you'll be doing workshops, quite often online. So you'll be with a group of people you possibly don't know, but the nice thing is the more workshops you do, the more familiar faces you see, and you go, oh, I remember you from X pub or X hotel, and you get to kind of know your cohort in a way. Even though you're not necessarily in a class, you still come across those same people. So you can obviously get in touch with them on LinkedIn or whatever it might be, exchange numbers, and you can help each other. But I think in general, I think like with apprenticeships, you have your workshops, but then obviously you have your tutor sessions, like one-on-one with your trainer. So Gemma Savage was my trainer for my level 3, and she was fantastic help. And I'm now with Fade Gildner, and who's doing my level 5. And quite often, I think every 4 or 5 weeks, we'll just get on a Zoom call together and we'll chat, just make sure I'm on track and everything's in order. If we've got like any assessments or tasks or topics, whatever we've got to do, we might get on and do some practice for that. But yeah, effectively, everything you do is during your work hours. So you don't have to do anything outside of your work hours per se, but you have your off the job hours. So if you're doing anything different in your job role, a bit like today actually, I could say that I'm come out here to doing a podcast, which is not something I usually do, and I could take those learnings and then apply that to my hours that I have to put towards my apprenticeship and write about that and kind of explain maybe what I've learned, or depending on the course you're doing, what you get out of it effectively. But yeah, apprenticeships is not really classroom based. It's I'm not saying it's an alternative, but it's on the job learning, and then stuff you learn, the theories you learn, or tasks that you're doing in a workshop, you can then implement it in person and actually see how it goes. And I remember doing a load of appraisals with my team last year after learning about different learning styles, and kind of just talking to them, you can start identifying, well, actually they're not that great at this, or they could improve it here, but is it because we've not been adapting to the best way in which they learn? And no, obviously one size doesn't fit all, so it's just trying to make sure that we can get the most of our team that's possible, really. But yeah, no, apprenticeships, I think, at least in hospitality, work really well, because a lot of people in hospitality aren't massively academically inclined. I have a couple of people that I know in my site, I won't name them, who might not be the most academically inclined, but are doing apprenticeships and are getting a lot out of it, because it's better for their learning, it's better for their understanding, it's practical, it's hands-on, and you have to sit down and do some theory, you have to write a little bit, and you do have assessments to complete. But I think as an alternative maybe to university or classroom based, it's something that you are able to get. I think you can get more out of people who don't necessarily learn in that more traditional style as well.
I think that's where hospitality probably has a step up on apprenticeships, because I think there are a lot of apprenticeships where it is either 70-30 or 60-40, where you are still in that classroom environment, but most of the time I feel like if someone's taken an apprenticeship, it's because they don't want classroom. That's not how they learn. They are practical, like you say. Absolutely. So hospitality has that.
I think it has that edge in a way, and I'll be fully honest. Like, if I go back to when I was finishing my GCSEs, and somebody said, "Oh, do you want to do an apprenticeship?" I'm thinking, no, not really. I'm smart enough to do a degree, or I'm academic enough to do this. And then you realise that that's not what an apprenticeship really is. It's not a backup. It's not a BTEC to a G. You know, all those stigmas that you have when you're in school or just finishing school. It's really not the case. And yeah, again, I finished school planning to go to university originally, or getting a degree through the Air Force or whatever it would have been. But then realising that hospitality had these options, and sure, I don't think I was even massively looking forward to doing an apprenticeship originally. I think it was an option, they offered it to me, and why say no? So I did it, and then it was quite early on realising actually there's a lot more to it than that, and maybe being a bit of an ignorant 18, 19-year-old, but I think then you realise actually there's something here, so to do it and then realise actually there's a lot more benefit to it. And I look back at people I went to school with and keep in touch with, and you see them doing apprenticeships in their other industries. And sure, I don't know how those apprenticeships run or how they work necessarily, but I think it's nice to see that it's not dead. And I actually think investment from the government in apprenticeships and things like that is a massive route forward. And I mean, I always think of my dad, and growing up, he was in the police, and they introduced in the police that you've got to do this degree sort of training to join. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of that, but it was just saying not everybody necessarily learns, or not everyone who's good in a certain job. So a typical police officer might be street smart, but not necessarily have the academic ability to complete those courses. Not to say I don't know anything about that process, but if you put that same situation in hospitality, somebody can be really good with interacting with customers, able to pull points, understand how business works, quite good with money maybe, but in terms of like maybe academic smarts, they might not necessarily be there so much, but then they would have been denied those opportunities to do those degrees or courses because they don't have that. But really, that's not what it should be. And I think apprenticeships open doors to people. And I like to think I could have done a degree. I don't think I'm too thick or anything like that. Not saying you have to be thick to do that, but I think at the same time, it's not going to be for everyone. And in the same way, apprenticeships not going to be for everyone. Yeah. But I think apprenticeships open a lot more doors, and why not get on the experience and get on the work ladder, I guess. Actually, you can do a degree for 4 years but then have no experience. Why not actually get involved and get some get some experience under your belt? I mean, quite often employers will look for experience over obviously depending on the job, but they'll look for that experience over just a grade or a qualification sometimes. And I think if somebody can show to me that they've not done an apprenticeship but are really good at the job, then you have to weigh that up. But I think apprenticeships are an amazing opportunity for hospitality, and I think anybody who has the option or companies offered it to them, you'd be silly to turn it down. So absolutely take it.
So now as a manager or assistant manager?
Yeah, so I'm an assistant manager at Southsea, yeah.
Are you bringing in new team members? Are you helping train people onto the job now?
Yeah, so for the last 2.5 years, training and recruitment has been my main responsibility, really. So obviously we're in January now, coming over the next few months, we're going to be hiring again, ready for summer trade. And that for the last couple of years has basically been my whole job role. So getting team on board, we're actually trying to identify talent and then trying to basically upskill them and get them part of our workforce. Where we are in Portsmouth, we've got quite a big university, so we get a lot of students, but that works for us because quite often then they're here for the summer and then they go again, but then they go on to the careers that they're doing. And it's just those options like that which I think which is great for us. So yeah, in terms of recruitment, It depends. I have my full-time staff that I know are going to be there for a while, and if they want to upskill, then yeah, sure, doing the apprenticeship. I also know I've got students who don't want to be doing apprenticeship because they're currently doing a degree, which is perfectly fair enough. So I think it's just having. I'm not saying all my hires are perfect because they're not, but you just have to, and you learn from those mistakes, and you learn from actually, well, how do you get the best out of people? And the apprenticeship that I'm doing helps me try and identify that, and if I do make mistakes, or I'm not maybe communicating the best, then how can I change my management style to best motivate them? So I think it's just one of those things where it's just trial and error. Well, not necessarily trial and error, but you're just trying to find what's right for you and what's right for them. So yeah, there's no one solution, but it's definitely but doing the apprenticeship and actually understanding, experiencing management and making those mistakes is kind of how you learn. So it's great.
So when you're hiring for a role and you get loads of CVs in, loads of applications, what are you looking for? Like, because I feel like a lot of people, when they're applying for a pub, they don't necessarily have a lot of work experience under their belt. So they've got to put something else on their CV. What makes a CV or what makes an application stand out to you?
Sure. Well, the first thing, and this is going to sound so obvious, and it's the first thing I was ever taught in school, is make it look professional.
Yeah.
Before you even put any content in there, just the amount of CVs that come in and they're not capitalised, they're all kind of a bit all over the place, and it's all just a bit of a mess. If you can't write a document, or you can't sell yourself, then you're probably not going to be shortlisted, right? Now there are exceptions to that. If you can clearly state that you've got experience and stuff like that, then there are, it might stand out. But effectively, I think to stand out with your CV, if you might not have experience, but what have you done? Have you maybe, I don't know, you might have done some volunteering work, you may have done the D of E or whatever. I did some, but before I joined Brewhouse, I had a part-time job in college at a local pizza place, basically. So my experience I didn't have loads. I had a year worth in a kitchen, basically. But I did some volunteering and just other bits to try and, as you said, just try and promote yourself. And if you just come from school and you I get it, at 16, 17, there's not many jobs available, and to be honest, in hospitality, a lot of the time you're recruiting people that are 18 or above because you're selling alcohol. Doesn't mean you could still get pot wash experience somewhere, or I know but at the end of the day, you got to start somewhere, haven't you? And I know when I did some pot washes when I first started, I was actually, when I first applied to Brewhouse, I was actually turned down.
Really?
Yeah, not but I was rejected just because of experience. But I then basically said, I applied for the front of house role, and they said, well, do you have any? I said, well, if you've got any kitchen hours, basically because Brewhouse was in the town that I'd moved to at the time. My other job was in my old one, so it was a bit nearer. So I said, well, if you've got, I can pot wash or something if you want. And I did pot washing for a little bit, not long, only a few weeks. And eventually I think a few people had actually just left. And then I was like, well, could you give me a shot? And then I gave it a go, and here we are. But so it just goes to show it's not always going to be a straight line. But I definitely think when recruiting, I think you definitely definitely put your school experience in there. But if you have any experience at all, whether it's job related or not, put it in there, because you basically just want to see a personality out of someone. And quite often, experience isn't everything either. I've hired people who have got experience and they've worked at X, Y, and Z pub, and they turn up and you're just like, what, really? Like, not to say that you're not good at the job, but not what you expected, and you're just like, oh, I thought you'd said you'd done this before, or But quite often, like me, going into hiring someone with no experience is the best way to go, because you build them up how you want to. You don't have bad haircuts, you can mold them how you want. And I don't think experience is necessarily, especially for a front of house role, isn't necessarily the be end or end all. But on your CV, just sell yourself and show you got personality. I think it's the big thing. Like, people come in and they're not necessarily the most outgoing. Well, that's fine. I get everyone's not going to be extroverted. I guess interviews can be nerve-wracking situations, absolutely. But we are in hospitality, and if you are going to be customer facing, just sell you to me. So sell, because ultimately you're going to be selling yourself and products to the customer. So you got to really give it a go, I think. And if you're in a job interview, as I think I said to you before we started the recording, we've had a job advert that went out yesterday, and we've had quite a lot of applicants come in already. And to go through all of that, to make a short list of, I don't know, 10, 5, whatever people, you're going to have to stand out a little bit. And I know that's, easier said than done sometimes, absolutely. But why? Just tell us about you. Just don't keep it. Don't just put your education and your grades. Just tell us, even if you haven't necessarily worked before. Just talk about us.
I think what I had put on my CV is that I had joined the theatre club at school. So I mentioned, I did so and so shows, and I like doing this. Like even just your hobbies or the clubs that you join.
Yeah,
like that's enough to show the type of person you are.
Yeah, you go to the football every week. Okay, cool. Then what do you enjoy about it? Why do you want to work in hospitality, and why do you enjoy going to this? Or as I said, you're in a club or whatever it might be, or you might volunteer somewhere, or you have a passion for art or music or whatever. Just why is that? And how do you think that might help you in a job, or what could you bring to this job because of your likes or interests? I know it might not be the biggest selling point in terms of I've worked here and here, but it's telling us about you. And I think quite often people get down thinking, I don't have experience, or a job says you need at least 1 or 2 years experience, but then nobody will accept me, so therefore I can't get that experience. I don't always think that needs to be the case. At least I can't speak for every person hiring, but for me particularly, I think yes, experience good, don't get me wrong, and sometimes you do need an experienced team member, but also if you have that time and the team around you to mould them into what you want, there's nothing wrong with that either. So I think, I will name drop him, Joel. He's one of our supervisors. Yeah. Came in with no experience. I think he was a butcher beforehand, and he is now, he's been with us 1.5 years, and is, as I said, a member of management, and he's doing an apprenticeship as well, actually. So that career I'd love to see, go up and up and up, and eventually have a place of his own in however many years' time. But I think, I certainly think for that, you could train him how you wanted to. He had no experience, and that's the same with many people and many of my team. If you have that time and ability to invest in them, absolutely invest in them. So talent, I think, is getting rarer and rarer sometimes, even though there's more and more people looking for jobs. So just be you. Is all I can say. Just show your personality and try your best, and then with any luck, you find somewhere.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure.
You briefly said that you had kitchen experience. That was like the one thing on your CV.
Sure, yeah.
Why didn't you apply for a kitchen role then?
So I basically just worked like cutting pizzas and making pizzas basically originally when I was in college. So it was just pocket money really, part-time job that I could do on the side. I knew quite early on that it wasn't something I wanted to do.
Right. The stress of the kitchen was too much.
Yeah, I have covered the kitchen a few times now, like in Brewhouse when needed, but it's definitely not my area of expertise. I'll put it that way. I prefer being out front. It wasn't like a hatred of going, right, I'd never want to be in a kitchen again, but I think it was just more, I'd rather not have been. It just wasn't for me, I think. But obviously, when you're 16, 17, and you're in college, you don't complain. It's your first time. Like you said, I gave a CV with absolutely nothing on it but my name, really, and a few grades that I was working towards, and I was lucky enough to get that phone call. I did a trial shift and it was my job. But then at the same time, this is the whole point: when you're front of house or working in a kitchen, whatever, and you're that age, no one's expecting you to be massively experienced either, because it's your first job or one of your first jobs. But yeah, no. So I doing that, and I just felt it just wasn't necessarily for me. Yeah. So I decided to move on. But again, I'll be honest, when I got a job with Brewhouse, I wasn't necessarily looking for a front of house in hospitality. I was applying for office jobs as well. I was applying, to work at a local cinema or whatever it could have been, just because we moved town, just to earn some money, really. Obviously, at the back of my head, I was still training and working towards the RAF. So for that not to then happen, and then having those opportunities, I stuck with Brewhouse because of that. So, but Brewhouse has been fantastic and had those opportunities for me from them. So, absolutely no reason to deviate from that.
I think entry roles like that as well, not just help you figure out what you like, but also tell you what you don't like. Yeah,
no, for sure. I think that's sure. Like, you don't necessarily on a Saturday night want to be there till 4:00 in the morning, when you have a large crowd come in. But at the same time, that's the job. And I think you learn quite quick what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. And unfortunately, no job will ever be perfect, I don't think. There's always going to be downsides. But you got to look at it. And on the whole, I think hospitality, and particularly my role at Brewhouse and my time at Brewhouse, has been pretty good. So I can't really knock that. But I think, as you say, you find out what you enjoy quite quickly. So well, I'm still here, so it must mean something.
And you said maybe one day you'll run your own pub.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if the job opportunity still has to come up yet, but I know there's been talk that I've been trying to work towards it, and it's kind of what my personal goals have been, and it's what I've expressed interest with my senior managers above me, and I think they're aware of my aspirations and where I want to go, so it's kind of just helping nurture and train me really into that role eventually.
Where would you want to run a pub? Would you want to be in Portsmouth?
I think yeah. I mean, obviously my family and my life is kind of the southeast of England, so Portsmouth, southeast sort of area is kind of ideal, really. Even London's possible, it's an opportunity. It's that sort of area of the country, but as long as you're not too far away from necessarily family or commitments that you have outside of work, then those opportunities are there. Obviously, probably wouldn't move to the other side of the country for a job, for a pub, for example. But again, if the right job comes along, then you take the opportunity. So
right fit for you.
Yeah, exactly.
So you entered the NITAs competition this year.
Yep.
How did you find that? Did your GM put you for that, or did you find it yourself and put yourself?
So I was speaking to a few people at head office, Jody being one of them, and a few other people that and Ethan Wilford, who's been who's been a good mentor for me actually for the last couple of years, and we were talking about my apprenticeships and the NITAs. So we all went a couple of years ago when we were up for, I want to say it was the best apprenticeship program or something along those lines. I'll be honest, I cannot quite remember, but they did win. The Brewhouse Kitchen obviously won that award, and I think because I was invited as one of the apprentices in the company, we all had the opportunity to kind of go up on stage and give it and be at the NITAs, which was fantastic. Little did I realise I'd actually go for the apprenticeship award next year. But yeah, so I was talking to Jody, Ethan, a few others, Matt, my line manager, and we said we'd give it a go. So we obviously filled out the forms, and kind of what I was saying was about CVs earlier, trying to sell yourself really, and just say, look, I've got this experience, but here's why I'm here. Here's why I've done this. I've put myself forward. So we did that, and heard back and sort of told I was shortlisted, which was great. And then obviously did the presentations and the the preparation into kind of trying to sell myself. Promote myself and the company as well, and the achievements we'd all done through apprenticeships and whatever it may be, and then it was just to find out that obviously get there on the day and then find out you've won was a fantastic feeling. Like, really didn't expect to win necessarily. It was kind of nice to be shortlisted into the final, but no thinking, we weren't necessarily. Of course, you go to hope to win when you first apply, but to actually follow that process through and then my name get called was a really great feeling, and definitely not something I was necessarily expecting anyway. But yeah, to go back for the second year in a row was fantastic. So I think to work with the BII a little bit more over the next year would be a great opportunity. So
perfect. How did you find the night? Was it nerve-wracking leading up?
Yeah, I know for sure. I think when the food was coming, I was like, I can't eat this. Like, it was nice food, but it's just
too nervous.
So I obviously had a little bit, but it's then just. Obviously, it's the last award of the night. Well, second to last, I think, actually. But obviously, you got 10 awards or whatever it is in front of you, and you're just like, wait, looking at the clock. Not to discredit any other awards that are ahead of you, but of course, you're getting nervous for your one, And eventually, they get onto it, and I think they spoke about me first, and then a couple other the nominees. And then to get your name called out, it was just a massive, not a relief, but it was just great that the tension, the suspense was over. And then obviously it's all I mustn't fall over when I walk up on stage or anything like that. And then obviously to pick up the award and then come back and you could sit back down, and I was ready to start eating then. But it's just great to have that opportunity to basically to go up there and be with everyone. I invited Matt, my general manager, to come with me, and it was just kind of great to celebrate it with somebody who'd helped mentor me through the last couple of years and to kind of show it was for something. It's been a great opportunity, and I think might make an appearance there next year as well. So.
Out of curiosity, where do you keep the trophy? Is that
no, it's at home. It's on my mantelpiece at home. So it's on display for if anyone who comes over. But I don't think I could put it at work. I wouldn't try get knocked over or something at work. So, but no, it's at home on a mantelpiece. So it's there in there in the middle of the room so people can see it. But no, it's great to have, and obviously thank you to the BII and the NITAs for awarding it. So no, it was great.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.